Hey everybody, welcome to Opt-in Podcast. This is Marielle and this is episode 4, Choosing the Right School for You. All right, everyone, it's February 2021. It's getting close to the end of the application cycle for the class of 2025. So at this point, if you've not already committed, you're probably deciding between a couple schools that you've gotten into. So in this podcast, I wanted to discuss the things that help me decide on the school I will be attending this upcoming fall. So I'm sure you've applied to a few schools, and I have as well. And I know you probably also have an idea of which school was your top choice. However, things may change in the time you apply and the time you get accepted. So these are just things that I revisited just to reassure myself that I was making the right decision for the next 4 years of my life. So the first thing I want to talk about is location. Location can be a very important thing because you're spending the next 4 years of your life in this area. So things to consider about location is the weather. You might like sunny all year round. You might enjoy the snow. So there are schools that are located in places that winters are heavy snowstorms, or winters could be sunny, 60 degrees, and by the beach. Another thing to consider is the opportunity around the area. Maybe you like being in a city. Maybe you like being in the suburbs near a city. Maybe you like being very far from the city. So considering the city versus suburban lifestyle is something to think about, because you might have a culture shock if you go to a school or an area that you're not familiar with or are not prepared for. Not that it's a bad thing to go to a completely new area, just know what you're getting yourself into. The second thing I want to talk about is clinical exposure. So this is one of the more important factors that students look into when deciding on a school. So a lot of schools start clinical exposure at different times. So if you want early clinical exposure, then definitely look at schools that may start you in your first year or maybe your first semester. In addition to clinical exposure, the accessibility to the clinic. So how far is it from the campus? And how many practice lanes are there? Or maybe just how accessible is it to you? So if you don't have a car and if it's not walking distance, then you might have to take public transportation and put that into consideration. And also, in addition, just in terms of accessibility, what are the hours for students to go and practice in the clinic? Is it only from a certain time, or is it 24-hour access for students? That's something that might be important to you, because sometimes those clinics can be occupied for a lot of hours of the day, and you as a student want to get your practice in. So if it's open 24 hours, then you have more opportunities to practice. The third thing I'm going to talk about is research opportunities. So research might not be an important factor for everyone listening, but it was something I wanted to consider because it is something that I personally want to be a part of in some capacity. So what I was looking into are dual programs, whether that's ODMS or OD PhD programs, or the opportunity to do research in general. So what's the research like at that school? What's the collaboration with other universities? That could also play a factor into your decision making as well. Oh, and one more thing I want to mention about research opportunities is the T35 summer experience between your first and second year. If you don't know already, but the summer between your first and second year is the only summer you have off during school. And so students decide to either take vacation. Some students pick up a job for the summer, and others decide to do the T35 research program, which you do have to apply to in your first year. But it is an opportunity for you to get some research experience, whether you or not you've had it, and you also get a stipend for most places. I think, if not most, all places. Next thing I want to talk about is class structure. So optometry school is, in terms of size, is not very similar to most undergraduate educations. So in a graduate degree, usually the class sizes are a lot smaller. For optometry schools, usually class sizes range from 50 being the lower range to 150 students being the upper range. So 150 students is considered a large class. And if you're looking for a bigger community or you like having a lot of classmates, then maybe you want to look at schools that allow for a larger class size. In addition to class structure, student to staff ratio, what is that like? Is it 1 to 4? Is it 1 to 2? Every school is different, and it's just always nice to ask about that ratio because as a graduate student, you're paying a good amount of money to get a great education, one, but also the school is supposed to be a resource for you to be the best doctor and person you can be. So, student to staff ratio can be an important factor in your education. But regardless of the size and regardless of the ratio, you will still have opportunities at whichever school you decide to go to and whatever size school, whatever class size you end up being in. The next thing I want to talk about is career development. So, some schools offer classes that are specific to your career, not just the content per se, but maybe business classes or language classes that might help. For example, Spanish is a language class, and teaching students how to use Spanish in an optometric setting, specific classes to the career that may not be offered at other schools. Another thing about career development is the clubs. What are the clubs on campus? I just wanted to mention this because the clubs could be a good avenue for you to network and connect with people that have similar interests in you. And when you graduate, it could lead to a career opportunity. So clubs are a great way to gauge what you want to do for the rest of your career, and it is a great way to develop your career. The last thing I want to mention about career development is the counselors at your school. What types of counselors are there? Are the counselors there just for financial aid? Are they there for kind of helping you filter through your ideas of what specialty you want to go into? Or maybe you just want to talk to them and kind of hash out, do you feel fit that you can run your private practice, or do you want to do group practice? Counselors are there to support you, so it is nice if schools mention that. Another point I want to talk about are rotations. Rotations are what you do in your 4th year, and it is important to look at the rotations that your school has to offer. So rotations are different among each school and can differ whether you go to a private or a public school. Something I didn't know about is that if you're at a public school, it's unlikely that you'll have an opportunity to go abroad for a rotation, but going to public school does not limit your opportunities to go abroad after you graduate. So if you do go to a private school, doesn't mean you're guaranteed to go abroad, nor does it mean you will, because maybe the specialties that you're interested are all in the US. In addition, something to think about in rotations is how you get your rotations. Some schools do a lottery system. Other schools have programs that if you are able to get ahead in classes, you have a priority to choose your rotations. And I want to segue into residencies. So similar to rotations, each school has a different system to fill spots in for their residency programs. And it is a good thing to look at residencies when you're applying, because maybe you want to go to a school that has the residency you also want. So it could potentially be good for you to attend their school. And so they already know you. So when you're applying to residencies, they're already familiar with the person you are. Another thing that you might want to consider is the NBEO Experience. So if you guys don't know what the NBEO is, it's the set of board exams you need to take to be a licensed optometrist. So there's 3 exams, and each school handles these differently in terms of how they train you and how they prepare you for these exams. All the schools are obviously wanting everyone to be trained to pass the exams, but depending on the school you go to, the way one school might teach you and train you for the exams might be better fit for you than another. So things to consider about the NBEO experience is consider your clinical and didactic experience at your schools. So if you have a lot of didactic courses in your first year, how is that going to train you for your NBEO experience? And how is that going to prepare you to go into your clinic? But the NBEO is a very important thing if you want to become an optometrist because it is the only way to be licensed in the US. Another thing I want to talk about are tuition and scholarships. So, optometry school, like many other graduate schools, can be expensive, and student loans are almost inevitable. You might want to consider how much time the schools allot you to study for those for the NBEOs. So, some schools tend to lessen the course load during that time, and you're able to study a little more for the NBEOs, where other schools might not. So that might be a good question to ask during your student panels, during your interviews. So, tuition and scholarships can be an important factor to you if you are being offered a scholarship that covers a good chunk of your tuition. That might be something you want to consider and might be important to you because financial stability is something that we all strive to achieve. It is nice to have that cushion if you have maybe some scholarship money, even if it is to pay for just groceries or rent. You never know. A little money can go a long way for you. Just to finish off, I want to talk about the last and most important thing that I think is important for you to consider when you choose a school. Thing to think about, but the last thing that you should consider is, can you picture yourself being a student at that school? So, do you relate to their community and their culture? Do you like their mission and values? And it's a great thing to look at their website and just look at what they believe in and what they want to represent as a school and as future doctors. You want to be able to picture yourself there, happy. You want to be able to picture yourself being able to integrate into the community, and also this point is kind of a holistic, just have that support system there, because if you pick a school that fits you and your personality, um, it is something that will help you in the long run because you want to place yourself in a position that you can thrive and be your best self as a student doctor and as a person in general, because in the end, you are a human being and that's how you connect to other people. So you just want to make sure that you can picture yourself in that position, and in that school. Um, so I think that's all I want to talk about. I hope this helps you narrow down your choices or maybe just helps you organize your thoughts. If you have any questions or comments, you can always email me at crackoat@gmail.com. And another tip I want to give out is that students are always willing to talk about their experience. I mean, they're in school for 4 years for a reason. They have to like what they do. So feel free to reach out to students. I know most schools on their websites, if you look into their student life, they usually have a student panel that they put their emails, put specific students' emails on, and those students are more than willing to share their experience with you. So if you can't find something on the website or you can't find resources from your friends or your career counselor, etc., those students are a great resource for you. But anyways, I think that is all I want to talk about. I just want to thank you guys for listening in today, and I hope you found this helpful. And just remember that this podcast is sponsored by Crack the OAT, so go check them out on their website. They're a great study resource for the OAT. And if you tune into more episodes, we will be giving out some 10% off discount codes for their study material. So thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next episode.